ekip is a Horizon Europe initiative. And what the ascension of the project is to formulate policy recommendations to the EU on culture and creative industries. So, and they really want us as a consortium to tell them how they should and can influence and innovate the creative industries in itself, but also use creative industries as a sector that can really add value to the innovation of Europe and the innovative business and the power of the economic power of Europe.
I was just going to say that the brands that we kind of speak to, digital only is something that they've stopped looking at entirely. If it's like a mainstream brand, they're more looking at if a crossover where you prioritise the physical clothing, but the digital side is more to attract new and younger consumers. But it's not a standalone thing. It still is meant to tie into the sale of the physical clothes. So I think they're looking at it in a very, very different way. I think you did have a lot of brands, Ellis, Tommy and Nike, Adidas, Hugo Boss, that were doing digital-only activations, but they've kind of dried up, I'd say. They're not really interested in it at the moment anymore.
I see it's really, really used as an advertising tool, and or as like a design tool, of course. But consumer-facing, it's
marketing.
We were trying to position digital fashion as like the new punk, right? It was a completely alternative fashion industry to the mainstream physical fashion industry. It was like, here's an industry that has a lot of issues that we need to correct, and here's a solution, and this is what digital fashion is, non-physical, from an ethics, sustainability, production, resources.
I have my doubt, but
Yeah, the reality is that's a very difficult sell in lots of ways to consumers and to the physical fashion industry. The way it's evolved over these 5 years is it's merged into the physical fashion industry. And as Michael just said, physical fashion brands, you know, when we were all working at the Fabricant, they were experimenting with digital-only collections, but really now it's very much supporting their physical inventory and engaging consumers and using digital as a kind of pipeline function towards mainstream collections.
yeah, and games such as Roblox, where you sort of have your own character in your own life, and there you can buy garments for your persona, and a lot of fashion brands like Burberry and Tommy, they do these collaborations so you can fit your avatar the same way as you would wish in real life, but it's cheaper online. So
The fashion collaborations that I saw with them, it's a digital iteration of a physical product, so that you see the digital version of it and then you could go and buy it, but it injects them into this space, all around the space. And that's what they want.
Was it more like, did you guys also see that it is more because it doesn't really drive any value for the consumers?
There was always a problem that we found around utility.
So value,
You know, like how do we use this and what are we supposed to do?
Exactly,
with it?
yeah.
Do I have to create my own avatar? There was with the whole advent of Web3 and acceleration around the Web3 space, there was a moment where the garments were being collected because they were on blockchain. They could be traded and sold as digital assets of value. But that entire world itself, we were a niche within a niche within a bubble.
Bubble, exactly. That's a very nice way to put it, exactly.
You know, we were cogs within cogs. And none of it ever really came to fruition because we were also riding the crypto wave, which we know. So it was complication upon complication, and then within all of these niche spaces we were also a micro niche, so it was a very difficult thing to land in. Yet it all comes down to value, and monetary or personal value.
Think about, like, I had like once a walk and I came randomly into this basement of the Pathé, the Bioscope, like the cinema, and I don't know, I was searching for a toilet, and all of a sudden I came in a room like this and there were all these kids gaming behind a computer. I was like, what the fuck, you know? And I see this also as fashion, like coming together, doing, you know, like championships. They're wearing digital clothes, and I think this is kind of like, yeah, we also talked about
subculture more.
Subculture,
Yeah.
but coming together, and it's actually living there. And I think like the tech and innovation companies don't really know how to reach that audience.
There's all these Roblox influencers too, like these young, they're really young.
Twitch streamers.
Twitch streamers, and they have Discords, and they're really active. But what they actually do with their communities, it's not like this kind of relationship of you watch me and I do stuff. They run like art contests. So all their community is generating designs, and they're, everyone's voting on them. So it's like this new, I think co-creation is very much in that younger culture, and brands, it's really hard for them to, deliver a product that can do that, right, in physical.
Yeah, and in the end, everything will be like one pipeline that is fully like trained by your likes and whatever is something that you would like to buy is fully automated, and you will see real time designs popping up in your social media, and you can order it also. So I think it might be it could be a chance for a lot of indie designers to jump into that fully automated pipeline e-commerce thing.
I guess to define or to understand within this discussion is AI is coming from like two directions, and it's from the developer and then the user. And what are we asking of the user? Because it's kind of like saying, I use Photoshop, but do I need to know how to build Photoshop? Like, no, I don't need to know how to build Photoshop. I need to know how to use it really well. I don't know how it operates.
Yeah.
I've watched some videos on like how diffusion models work and how they generate, images, and I'm like, okay, what the hell did I just watch? They've managed to explain something to me, but I still understand nothing in a way. But the outcome of these technologies is quite incredible on a creative perspective. But we're not going to be engineering these things, we're going to be using them. So how do you come to, especially a fashion industry that is very set in its ways, that designers still draw by hand, they use pencils, they use erasers, they don't all use Photoshop still. How do you bring that not just into like 3D and technical development, but then all the way into AI to be sat there using that as well? I think it's as much about adoption and knowing what the expectation of the user is, and then what the expectation of the development is, and how you facilitate that discussion.
When we speak to brands, the adoption of AI, I think, is something that a lot of people can get their head around a lot quicker.
Because
the 3Ds,
Yeah.
Whereas the 3D side of things is something that they're still struggling with, even with teams that are using it day in and day out, because they still want to go back to a tangible, physical sample. But AI, they're using more as a creative prompt as opposed to anything else.
I think it's like people who can, using like Mid-Journey or some of these, it's easy, but for a brand to really use it, it's like they have to kind of train their own model.
When we're speaking to brands, no one is taking a holistic approach to what AI is. There's no central owner to who is actually owning an AI strategy and rolling that out within a brand. You've got design using it, you've got the merch planners using it, supply chain from an inventory standpoint, retail from a sales standpoint. No one is actually coming together, it seems, at the moment, and I imagine it won't be long until there is a new role that is created that is, I don't know, chief AI officer. They might need it, but it's crazy at the moment that within but all of these brands have always been the same, no matter what the tool or tech is. They're so siloed in the way that they work, whether it was PLM and 3D as well. They never sit down together and talk about, from a high level holistic view, how can we make this work, and therefore they fail at it so much more than they need to.
This is our organization. It's like the university, it's like the municipality. So each department works alone, as its own politics, dynamics, and so if you ask a company to cut across, it will take, I don't know, other 10 or 5 years. But what I find interesting is that, and it's a challenge and also an opportunity, because there is not yet a booklet or a taxonomy of how you can use it, because the technology is developing as we speak. So in the company, from you, they also have no idea what they can do. But for fashion, for me, what I'm really interested in is how the circular economy can be accelerated. But then also to produce less, I would say. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
if it's producing less because then you can modify your things like through AI, then I would say yes, let's go. But also then, what does it mean in terms of electricity?
Say accessibility for not our group and our age group or whatever. People who are not very digital acquainted or a little bit older, how are they going to be included into this whole spectrum of AI, and how are they going to use the tool? My grandmother doesn't even have a bank account, for example. How is she going to be accessible for all the AI tools and all the power which is given to these companies, which are accessible, but they don't have like the skills to interact with it. I think that's a huge challenge for not only Rotterdam but the whole European Union to facilitate knowledge for that group and how they can manage that. Yeah.
So, if AI shows us that a task is useless for a person to do, is it such a bad thing that you just lost your job? So if your job is repetitive data entry, it's you exist in a space like that, and you get replaced by AI, well, that just exposes that a lot of the jobs we're asking people to do are actually just not good jobs in the beginning. So like, how do you then retrain those people? How do you bring them in to keep them in the same industry, but then shift them into another part of the company? Not get rid of them and lay off 20,000 people, but how do you action their existing skills into a new area? Like, I think that's part of it, because a lot of things people do every day, you could just easily do with an AI now. So
AI can be used for your job. We're going to teach you how to use this tool in your advantage.
Yeah.
But it's always like, okay, AI can do this, or like tech can do this, reduce you. So I think one of the challenges would be is finding ways to integrate this tech into someone's job and not taking over the job.
It says, like, reducing unemployment in sectors traditionally reliant on manual labor. And I actually feel like manual labor is the thing that AI cannot touch. Like, you know, like daycares and teaching, like this is like
It's
hugely so is
labor.
this actually like, I don't know if this is necessarily like
I
a
think,
challenge or
Shouldn't
not,
it
but,
also
like,
be reducing employment, not unemployment?
Yeah.
You're reducing employment, not the unemployment. So that's just
Yeah,
a
to
slight.
shift people
I think
away,
that's the
right?
confusion. Yeah.
Because that's that meme, right?
like
Where why
switching.
cannot AI do my dishes? I can think for myself, but why cannot?
Well, you do have the
Waiting for the robot.
Elon Musk AI robot now. So.
People don't go into craft industries anymore because they believe that AI can take care of everything. So maybe sort of slight kind of artisanal parts of fashion are kind of considered not necessarily worthy of pursuing, because I think if I can create it in 2 minutes in AI, why should I bother kind of
it's a big problem for luxury brands.
doing a 10-year whatever internship to get into an atelier? Human made could become the premium. Human made could become
And
the
that's
new
how
luxury.
it is now.
Yeah.
But making sure people
Yeah.
are going into human made is a challenge.
Yeah.
But then human made could become something
yeah.
that's of higher value than AI creation.
Yeah.
These technologies evolve so fast, and it's sometimes very expensive to like adopt these softwares. Or is there also a challenge with that? Do you think these AI software? It's like, how do you keep up with all? How do you keep yourself updated with these like fast-changing technologies? And is it very expensive?
I think another challenge to add, and I think it touched upon a few of the points that we heard, is that AI, and especially those large language models or 3D generation models, they kind of create a new form of inequality. Namely, you touched upon it, compute, processing power.
Yeah.
Because right now, the worldwide AI boom really rests on the shoulders of a couple of American rich companies that spend a few billions or tens of billions of dollars on entertaining us with this technology and providing the compute power that we can use it for 20 euros a month. ChatGPT, will they pay more for running these servers than what they earn through us? I don't know how this holds right now for the fashion industry, but I can also see that some really big players that have the necessary pocket change start outperform a lot of the smaller producers or the smaller artists or fashion professionals because even if you put your effort, your creativity in it, if they can run the same process 1,000 times while you are busy with one process, you're gonna lose on the big game. I think that's also a danger for the whole business sector.
There's a lot of closed-off models now with LLMs from all kinds of US companies. But there's also, for example, models from Meta, which are open source models that could be more used by European companies who are a little bit more responsible with more transparency, I would say. That's I would say, a very big challenge to get very transparent data sets, which all these models are trained on, because that's the most abstract thing. You put a question in there, but how does it get the information?
Like technologies that just scrape stuff from all over the web, and no one has. But that needs to be regulated, and you can feed only the data that you 100% sure of is free of IP.
Yeah, so then it comes like a copywriting. Yeah.
So trying to legislate for usage of other people's ideas, I think it's such a difficult thing to try and create legal boundaries around. It's almost impossible. Can you say, well, that was 30% my design, but then it's mixed in with something else? And then you have the whole history of design and creativity, which is a homage or referential, or in music, a remix. Everybody kind of tends to reference something historically, because that's the nature of creativity. We're all taking from somewhere. So I just think that's a very difficult thing to form.
Are we now talking about the outcomes, so the images, or do you then also own the prompt that you put in?
We need to be aware. It's easy to say that this has been stolen, but it hasn't. We put it up there for everybody to read, and I post all my things on Instagram, so you can go and look at them and tell me how good I am. That's what we want. That's what social media became. We created this pool of stuff, and the AI guys came in and figured out how to use it. And then we all said we got everything stolen off us. My stuff gets stolen off the internet all the time. Like, my graduate portfolio is literally all over Pinterest. And am I mad about it? No, because it was my graduate portfolio. It's from 10 years ago. But I made that decision to put it up there because of what I thought I could get out of it. So to bring it back round to policy and legislation, what existing policies need to be adapted in terms of like data protection laws to protect people's data, in the sense of like what you type into ChatGPT should be protected because it's personal. But then what you freely posted out onto the internet, do you have any rights over that anymore? It's this idea that the scraping of images has happened, and then this is what Midjourney's been trained on. But that's exactly what I do as a fashion designer. I go on the internet and I go to the libraries and I go and I find all these beautiful images and references and stuff, and then I chop it all up and I stick it all back together and I say, look at all these designs I made. I didn't make none of this. It came from Comme des Garçons 1996. It came from YSL from this season. Like, it came from everybody else that I then brought back together to fit into this moment in time that we are now, into this zeitgeist that we exist in.
The copy of the copy in fashion is kind of like a part of it, and we cannot really avoid that. But I read once a report of Hugo Boss that did implementation of 3D, and one of their points was like, collections can be now 40% faster to the store. And I was like, but
that's not a good thing.
That is actually not what we want, because if we bring it faster, we can even make fashion faster, we can bring it faster to the client. So I think for the UE, it's making like laws more complicated for like fast fashion to produce so cheap, and maybe reward like better productions or smaller.
That's a good one.
You know, like.
I think the circularity thing is something that brands don't want to implement because it's cost.
Yeah, it's
And
only costly.
when they implement AI, they can see, I guess, at some stage, whether it's analysing data or it's generating designs, they can sell more of what they're originally selling. But I think part of the reason they're probably not implementing this stuff is because it will expose to them that they're doing something that's not the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Which it would make more sense to be circular. It would make more sense to figure out that side of the industry. But
like, I know Shein, everyone's really anti Shein because of that model, but the way they do the micro trends is actually really smart, and it could even like if you added that to a process that was slower, that would actually be awesome. You know, like to be really hyper focused.
In terms of like legislation, then could there be risk that AI is used more for this kind of greenwashing? Like saying that it's not, so maybe legislation can try to, maybe there's some room to, I don't know, like limit that effort?
But I just think that whilst I would say like an opportunity for here and you guys is, whilst it might be too early right now to be like these are the exact skills that you need to learn, you could position yourself as a centre of education for this, because it's not going to be, well, even now, you know, the brands are saying, okay, how are we going to use AI? Give it a year, and they're going to be going, we want people coming into our company to have these skills, but no one is actually defining or standardizing that. They've only just done it for 3D, and that's been a slower process that they've had years and years and years, more money too, because it was pre-pandemic. So I think that's a real opportunity for you guys to position yourselves as part of that journey.
And there isn't a European body dedicated to fashion technology and education and really promoting these practices positively, working at a universal level. As far as I'm aware, it tends to come down to individual fashion councils promoting their own localised interests or brands.